Hi, my name is Teal, and I'm your host for the SweatNet Be Amazing podcast, where we share stories of amazing women who live in our communities. My hope is that you will feel encouraged and inspired after listening to each episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Be Amazing podcast here on SweatNet. I'm your host, Teal, and I'm so excited that you have decided to join us for this episode. I just want to take a minute and talk about the Be Amazing podcast and why this has been so passionate for me. I have such a heart for women and giving a platform for women to share their stories. I am inspired by women locally. I'm inspired by women all over the country, even the world. The stories I'm so intrigued by, what jumpstarts somebody into, whether it's their career or their passion. And I've just felt like this is like a perfect spot to be able to host that. So if you have a story to share or you know someone that has a story that you think we need to hear, please send me a message. You can email me at itsceel@gmail.com, or you can go to my Instagram. It's Seal Smart. That's ITSCELSMART. And you can send me a message there. And I would love to talk with you. And I would love the opportunity to share your story right here on the podcast. So again, share this with others. Take time to go and listen to all the different stories. Let people know that their story inspired you. That's another thing. Like when you hear somebody's story, let them know what that did for you. Because for somebody to get on and actually have a conversation and be vulnerable, it's a big thing. And so people need to know that you appreciate and that you've been touched by their experience. So again, go and like it, share it, and tag them in it. Because every single episode has somebody's Instagram or a way to get in contact with them. So thank you again for being a listener. Thank you for sharing. And I can't wait to share who my next guest is for today. Okay, so it's time to talk about my next guest. Her name is Bekah, and she's known as Run Coach Bekah on Instagram. So right now, go to your phone, pull that up, and follow her. She is an ACE certified personal trainer and RRCA run coach. She previously served as the regional fitness director and master educator at Orangetheory Fitness. She has over 15 years of experience in the fitness industry, and she's taught everything from spin, core balance, bootcamp, cardio kickboxing, Zumba, Orangetheory Fitness, and strength training. Her passion, y'all, is running, and we really get into this conversation and talk about running and how she got started and how she is really passionate about it now and helping others. She is also an Oxygen Elite ambassador. She's a Charlotte Marathon ambassador and On Running ambassador. And for us last year in October of 2021, she was a Be Amazing 5K ambassador. And we so loved having her part of that weekend. And really, this is where we recorded the conversation. So it was a year ago. And she had 2 children. Well, now she's got another one on the way. And she just finished her last marathon in Chicago. And she was 6.5 months pregnant. So y'all, she's so inspiring, and I cannot wait to share her story. We get into everything from like your vibe attracts your tribe and how important that is, and really get into more talks about running and her passion behind that. So stay tuned for this incredible conversation with Bekah. Welcome to the show, Bekah. I'm so glad to have you on.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So I was excited to talk to you because I met you on Instagram because you are a runner. And I was so curious about, what you're doing as a runner. I know you've done several marathons and all of that, and we're definitely going to talk about it. But before we do that, tell everyone a little bit about who you are as a person.
Yeah. So I am a wife and mother of 2 little ones. I have a 4-year-old girl and a 3-year-old, well, almost 3-year-old boy, and personal trainer and run coach.
And that's what your hobby is, like you spend your time running.
Yeah, working out and running. Like I truly don't feel like I'm working when I'm working because it's my passion.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, talking about running, is this something that you've been doing since you were little? Like when did you start actually doing that?
Yeah, so actually when I was younger, I hated running. When I was in high school, I had childhood asthma and I lived in a home with smokers, and it was just really hard for me. And I always looked at all of the people that ran track and cross country, and I was just so amazed by their abilities. And I just thought, wow, that's runners are just super fit people. I'm just not that. And I didn't actually start running until about a year or two after I graduated college. I met a girl who I worked with, and she was a runner her whole life. And she invited me to go for a run with her. And she's started training for a 10K. I had no idea how far that was, but I knew that that was something that I wanted to do. And so I started running with her. And she, bless her heart, she was so patient with me because I have no idea how fast or slow we ran. I just remember I had to walk a lot. So,
Well, I think it's awesome. I love the fact that you didn't run growing up and that this is something that you found later on as an adult. What was your first big race?
so I did quite a few of the Monument Avenue 10Ks before I committed to doing a half marathon. And I ran the Rock and Roll Virginia Beach half marathon in 2008. And immediately when I crossed the finish line, I turned to my friend and I said, I want to run a full. And I just hit the ground running, literally, and haven't looked back since. My first marathon was in 2009.
So, how many have you done total at this point?
I've run 20 full marathons.
That's amazing. And then so what's your big one coming up?
Yeah, so I like to think I have two, because I mean, Boston is, of course, it's a huge race. It'll be my first in-person Boston since before I had kids. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm also running Blue Ridge Relay about a month before Boston. And I ran it last year with a group of 12 people, and it was just such a fun race. So I have that, and then the Boston Marathon.
So, tell me a little bit about the relay. Like, what does that all entail, and how long is it?
Yeah, so it's a 24-hour race. You start on Friday morning and finish on Saturday morning. And it's we actually have two groups of 12 people this time. And it's two separate teams. We have a group of 12, two vans of 6, and you each run 3 legs of the race. It averages around 16 to 18 miles total per person. And you basically, when you're not running your leg, you ride in the van and hope that you can get some sleep, but most people don't sleep. So it's one of those races where it's super exhilarating because almost every person has to run in the middle of the night, pitch black, wildlife around, in the mountains. And it's just such an amazing experience, and really hard to explain how fun it is, because it sounds kind of scary until you do it. And then everybody that ran last year wanted to come back and do it again. So
It sounds like it would be like a challenge, but I think the team aspect is what would make it so much fun.
yes, and the van drives alongside of you through parts of it and cheers you on, and it's just such a cool experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that would be something I would have to say I want to do at some point.
You
Maybe not
absolutely
right now,
should.
but
I
at
think
some
everybody
point.
should. My husband doesn't even run, and I want him to do it.
Oh, I love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, for somebody that is just starting to run, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would say, first off, don't ever compare yourself to someone else. You really have no idea how long someone's been running. So you shouldn't ever focus on your pace, on your time. You should really only focus on just running a little bit further each time if you're really trying to train for a long distance event like a marathon. So, the number one thing is just don't compare. Everyone's so different. And then just have patience with yourself, because most people, what is that quote? It takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Most people, it takes a lot of training hours to feel good running, to be able to accomplish a marathon or a half marathon. And you really just have to be patient with the process and enjoy the process, because the process is just as sweet as the race itself. So
Great advice. It's true. I think with anybody, I think that the quote, there's another quote that talks about having 10,000 hours of experience to become an expert at anything. So I feel like that kind of flows right into what you're saying. Like, I think a lot of people do get impatient with themselves or they judge themselves. And I love that you touched on that because, and then it could be true for anything, but I think especially when it comes to um, physical challenges or fitness challenges, like that's a great way to look at it and just, pace yourself.
Yeah. If anybody ever comments on my pace or my speed, I tell them it took me a really long time to get here. I've been running marathons since 2009. I wasn't always at this pace and always at this speed. I put in a lot of hours and a lot of training to get here where I am. So I think that it's possible for anybody that is physically able to run a marathon, and they just need to have the patience and the determination to continue the training. So
That's awesome. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the work that you've put in to get to where you are and the fact that you have this many marathons under your belt and all that you're doing. And I think it just is so encouraging, especially knowing that running was not necessarily your thing.
yeah.
And now it is. So I think that can be for anyone. Like if there's something that, if you're open to it, and take the chance to try it. I think a lot of people refer to themselves like no matter how far, like they might run 2 miles or five or whatever, and you hear it all the time. I'm not a runner. I'm not a runner. And then like I heard even Lisa Landrum today even said, no, you are a runner. Like it's if you're running anything, you're a runner.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how far you go, how fast you are, slow you are. Running is such an inclusive community. Like all you have to do is just move on your own 2 feet. And we've got this such a great community of people that all support each other. So, I mean, Charlotte is just such an amazing place to find groups to run with. You don't ever have to start on your own. There's always somebody that you can run with that will help support you and tell you that you can do it, even if you're telling yourself that you can't.
That's just a great way to put it, and I agree. Charlotte has a tremendous running community, and it's so easy to connect, and there are people at every level, so you'll
Mhm.
find your fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what about hobbies? Do you have any other hobbies or anything else that you're into?
Yeah, so before the pandemic, my husband and I travel internationally. We traveled before we had kids, and we still travel after kids. We don't go for as long, but I love. We are big food people, so trying we will try mostly anything, and we've done food tours in really cool countries. We've been to Cuba, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Europe. So we just love like being able to travel and do those things. Unfortunately, we haven't really been able to do that recently. So I've this is what I've taken up plants.
Well, so what's the craziest thing you've eaten?
I let's see. The craziest thing being that we weren't quite sure what it was. We were in Vietnam on a food tour in a small town called Hoi An, and like partway through our food tour, she took us. It was literally this big vat of soup on a sidewalk, and it was cold purple soup. And he said it was sesame soup made with traditional Chinese medicine, and it was sweet and it was delicious, and we have no idea what we ate. But but it was really cool. I mean, the food in Southeast Asia in general is just so phenomenal. They only have food that's in season, so it's all fresh always. And we ate a lot of stuff while we were over there. We never got sick, so it was definitely a uh great trip for us.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, do you have plans for something in the future where you want to go or what's
Our
next
next
on the
trip,
map?
not internationally, but we really want to go to Hawaii. I feel like I everyone I know has been to Hawaii, and we love that there's so much that you can do there as far as in the water, out of the water, hiking. So we're excited to plan something like that, probably with the kids when they're a little bit older. And yeah, we've definitely got some on our bucket list. We really want to go to Japan next too, without the kids.
Awesome. Yeah.
It's a really long trip. So, I mean, so
Yes.
is Hawaii, but you know.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, tell us, do you have a favorite song that you are motivated by when you run, or is there a quote, or is there something that you lean into for motivation or inspiration?
Yeah. So I actually have my absolute favorite quote, and I read it often. It's a Steve Jobs quote, and it's kind of a long one, but you've probably heard it. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. And don't let noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. Most importantly, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. And they somehow already know what you truly want to become. So that is huge for me because I tend to want to portray myself in a certain way. And at the end of the day, you have to do what's right for you, whether it's what job that you choose or the relationships that you're in, friendships or significant others. You have to be with people who let you just be yourself and be who you are and live out your passions and not tell you that's the wrong way to live. So
Thank you for sharing that. I always love to hear, what people are inspired by or what, they lean into for that type of motivation. And that one's a really good one.
yeah, I love it. I mean, I've definitely tried to live the way of other people's thinking and it didn't work out. So, finally falling into my passion of fitness, no matter how many people told me that this isn't a career, I still followed my passion and I love what I do. So, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Is there anything else that you have that you'd like to share with the listeners, something that's maybe on your heart?
So, I mean, the biggest thing I would say is surround yourself with people who are going to support you and lift you up. And if you want to live a certain way, just be intentional about the people that you're around and who you're close to, because it makes a big difference. If you want to become a runner, hang out with runners. If you want to live a healthy life, hang out with healthy people. If you want to be a more positive thinking person, don't constantly surround yourself with negative.
You become who you hang around with and who you spend your time with, and it's important that you're conscious of that, because we all bring a vibe, right? We all bring a vibe to the table, and so it's important, whatever vibe you want to have, that you do surround yourself with those people.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. You should always feel good when you leave a conversation with someone. If you don't feel good and you feel worse than you did before you had that conversation, you probably don't need that person around you, So
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that.
yeah.
Well, I so appreciate you being on today and, sharing. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you or talk to you about running? Or I know you also personal train. So what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I'm very very active on Instagram, not as active on Facebook. So I'm always looking at my Instagram as far as messages. You can message me if you have questions about running. I love answering questions about running. So shoot them at me at Run Coach Bekah, Bekah. And then my website is runcoachbekah.com. So you can reach out to me on those two channels.
Thank you so much again for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me today. If you like the podcast, please like and share this with other women in your life. You can find out more about SweatNet on sweatnet.com or follow them on Instagram at SweatNet and SweatNet Charlotte. You can follow me personally on Instagram at itssealsmart. Stay tuned for the next episode of the SweatNet Be Amazing podcast.